With the advent of digital HD systems like the DJI O4 Air unit and the current tariff macroeconomic conditions, the price of even whoops has increased dramatically. For example, the Betafpv Meteor75 Pro Brushless is currently listed at $275.99 on race day quads, a whopping $76 jump from when it first came out. I did notice a sale on Amazon for a bring your own DJI O4 Lite air unit for just $79.99. So obviously I snagged that up, and my total cost with the DJI O4 air unit is $188.99, substantially cheaper than the $275.99. I did notice the price did go up. So the point being, us FPV pilots will need to be more creative with our builds by retrofitting our older quads and or looking for deals like I did here. So today we're looking at the PNP version of the DJI O4 Meteor75 Pro HD build, where you bring your own VTX. As you can see here, I have a different camera mount going on here, so we'll be going over that. And also, we shouldn't be talking about prices because they keep changing, but this seems to be a cheaper way to go than buying the fully assembled Meteor75 Pro HD O4. In the box, you get the quad itself minus the DJI O4 Air unit. You have a canopy. You have all the mounting hardware to mount the DJI O4 Air unit and also mount it to the canopy that's supplied. You get some spare propellers. You get a screwdriver. You get the USB-C programming dongle and cable, plus the wire harness for the DJI O4 Air unit, and then you get a QR code that goes to their support URL. Full disclosure, I got about halfway through installing the Betafpv camera mounting system, and I could just tell that it was too loose for what I would want, and so I decided, okay, I'm going to bail on that, go a different route. So Flywoo has a DJI O4 camera shell set. You get 4 pieces. It's gone up in price, but it's like $4.99 now. It's $5.99. So you'll just have to watch, what the current cost is. But what's nice about this, you can put the Flywoo ND filter on it. I think that's probably a better approach. I just used a file and enlarged the size of the opening for the camera so that the camera housing shell that comes with this kit will fit in there, and then it's not going to have a whole lot of movement, but there's going to be a little bit of an adjustment there. I'm going to use the spare rubber grommets here. I'm just going to use just the short end of that as a little rubber bushing to see if that gives me a little bit of rubber isolation, to see if that helps. And yeah, we'll go ahead and try this out and see if this is a better approach. I really think the Betafpv had a very unique design with their camera mounting system. But again, I got it kind of halfway installed, and I could just see how much it wiggled and moved, and it just didn't seem like that would be something I would really want in my camera feed. The whole idea behind a whoop like this is, going out and exploring, and if you get a lot of jello, that's not desirable. So, it's a cheap thing to do. And again, I got $5.99, and it doesn't require you to have a 3D printer. So I thought this might be a good approach to try and see what the results are. Before I even started putting the camera VTX and camera in the camera mount, I went ahead and ran a small bead of B7000 glue to stabilize the connector. There's been a lot of reports of this connector separating from the camera board in a crash, so this is just preventative, and used B7000 glue. Albert Kim has a good video on how to do that, so I'll go ahead and link that below. It comes with a shorter lead VTX antenna, so I'm going to replace the stock O4 antenna, which is a little too long. Camera shell installed, as you can see here. Make sure that it's fully seated and flush, and make sure the orientation is correct. The top of the camera is where the MIPI cable comes out from the top here. So that's the top of the camera. Installed the 4 rubber grommets, as you can see here. You want to make sure that the thicker piece or thicker part of the rubber grommet for vibration isolation is pointing down. This is the top, this is the bottom, so you have enough clearance for the VTX so it stands up high enough off of the flight controller. To cut the rubber grommets, I just use some diagonal wire cutters, and I'm going to be using the thinner half, I should say the thinner portion of the grommet as a spacer for the canopy. I'm going to use the M2 by 4mm screws that came with the kit, and I used a little bit of Loctite, and hopefully that'll give me a good enough compression fit that I can still move the camera angle and then hopefully get some vibration isolation with these rubber grommets, but we'll see. Next, we're going to be removing these 2 screws. We're going to remove the factory cable from the O4 unit and replace it with the Betafpv lighter weight, shorter cable that's going to be attached to the flight controller. This is what it looks like with the camera and ND filter installed in the canopy. I think it came out pretty nice. Of course, the big issue here is the camera sticking out past the canopy, but you do get some protection with the ND filter on there, so hopefully that will help out in a crash. Of course, you might damage a ND filter, but I do mostly just park flying, so this is nothing like bando bashing, so this is probably adequate for my needs. So I have the wire harness plugged in, one into the VTX and the other to the flight controller board. Before I put the canopy and VTX on its mount, I'm going to go ahead and plug this thing in and make sure I have good video before I go any further. It's kind of a pain to get everything buttoned up and then you find out that there's something wrong. Activated the DJI O4 Lite via the DJI Assistant, and then also bound it to my goggles, the N3s. Of course, making sure your orientation is correct. This is the front of the quadcopter, and this is the rear where the battery lead comes out. So this is how you're going to be orienting the O4 air unit. And then so install your first screw into the front mount. This is what the finished product looks like with the ND filter installed. Don't be a grill as far as how tightly you cinch down these rubber grommets, the bushings. You want to have a little bit of movement there. So overall, I'm pleased with how it came together so far. For a weight, I'm measuring 39 grams. Next, I'm going to show you some video. I flew about 10 packs through this thing. You will see acro, angle, post-stabilized with gyroflow, and then just raw video, all with the ND filter on there, so you can get a feel for what this is like with the hack. So here are my thoughts on my hack and the Meteor75 Pro O4. Let's start with my hack. Personally, I think the Betafpv mount is over-engineered. I'm sure you can get stabilized video out of it in GyroFlow, but I think many people that have purchased this quad have been complaining about the excessive jello feed you get in your video feed. So I think my approach is simpler. Other than using a file on the canopy, the hack is easier than the stock PNP canopy to assemble. Also, you can get a steeper camera angle with my hack, which is better for outdoor flying. Also, there's no 3D printer required. Lastly, you can use an ND filter with my hack, which is definitely a pro. But let's go through the cons. You do have to spend some time filing the canopy down, but you could use a Dremel tool, which I did to get the coursework done first and then fine tune it with a small file. Also, it's not really a con, but there are other options out there like Brain3D mount that you can buy from Race Day Quads, and there are a lot of other TPU camera mounts that are similar that you can get off of Thingiverse. I'll link them below. And then also a con is I did change the ESCs to 48 kilohertz, so you will have to fiddle with that. I've always found that with the lighter quad builds, I fly nano builds that are sub 100 grams, the 48 kilohertz seems to work better with the O4 air unit. So point being that the con here is the 96 kilohertz will give you better flight time, but I do think that was also contributing to the jello. Moving on to the quad itself, I really like this model. The tune was great right out of the box, didn't have to mess with that. This quad is easy to fly in both angle and acro modes. I think it's a great quad for a new pilot to take into a park, as it's quiet, flies stable, has prop guards, and gives you excellent video feedback in your goggles with the O4 system. The stock setup was great for a new pilot. I did put on my rates, modes, and enable motor stop for angle mode. And then also they had an expo on the throttle curve for new pilots, which I flattened out. But these are all personal preferences. The only other change I did was to change the warning voltage to 3.3 volts and then the minimum voltage to 3.2. I cranked both those values down. Even with that, after the flight, recovered to 3.7 volts, which is great. And so I didn't hurt my batteries at all. As the flight time is okay. This is a heavier quad. I was getting 3 to 3.5 minutes of flight time on a 450 milliamp hour battery. It's supposed to, they recommend the 550 milliamp hour battery, which I have on order, and that's one you really should be using. But for this video, I was using the 450 milliamp hour batteries because I had those on hand. So let's talk about another pro. The range is excellent in this. You can take this thing way further than your battery will allow you, so keep that in mind. This is a cruiser, and you can get in trouble as you get a little too far out, you're not paying attention, and all of a sudden you don't have enough battery to get back. So please keep that in mind. So the range on this is not an issue at all. Also a pro as far as a cine drone with the ND filters. I felt the video I was capturing, as you saw, was excellent for the O4 Lite. And although not professional grade, it's plenty good for posting on YouTube. And then lastly, the pro is on price. Although pricing changes daily, I shouldn't even be talking about price. It does appear that the PNPs, bring your own VTX, that are not completely assembled, seem to be cheaper. Maybe there's some sort of tariff break if it's not fully assembled. I'm not an expert here or knowledgeable in this area, but it's very interesting that the PNP and you add an O4 air unit is significantly cheaper than the fully assembled one. So maybe there's something going on with the way the tariffs are working. On the cons, this is a heavy 75 millimeter build as compared to its analog brethren. So consequently, keep this in mind, this is a cruiser, not an acro or speed demon. A 2S version maybe would have been a better choice for more experienced pilots, but I understand Betafpv was targeting new pilots in this model. Flight time is okay as stated, but it's not going to be as good as the ultralight builds out there for 75 millimeter analog whoops. So don't expect the same flight time you would get out of the lighter quads out there. Also, as stated, the camera mount was over-engineered in my humble opinion, and I think that was contributing to the micro vibrations that everybody's experiencing in the camera feed. So to me, that's a con, but that's why this hack is what I would use to mitigate that. Also, the digital systems are more expensive than their analog counterparts. So keep that in mind. If you are already committed to the DJI O4 ecosystem, then I think this is a good choice. But if you're on the fence and you want a cheaper solution, then of course analog is still alive, and there are some really nice lightweight versions out there from both Betafpv and others. Check those out as well. So who is this for? I think it's a good choice for new pilots wanting to learn FPV with the DJI O4 state-of-the-art video system. You have good prop protection. It's not that fast, so you're not going to get into trouble there. It's easy to fly, very stable in both acro and angle, and it takes great video feed that you can upload to YouTube. So overall, I would give this a thumbs up for a new pilot, with the caveat, you're going to be paying extra for the DJI O4 system. So with that, I always appreciate you tuning into my channel, and we'll catch you on the next one.